All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for the Osteosarcoma Institute Grant Cycle Information Session. My name is Chelsea Blanks. I have the privilege of being the operations manager at the Osteosarcoma Institute. We like to call it OSI. And I wear a few different hats here. And one of those hats is facilitating and administrating the grant cycle process. So I'm going to go around and introduce, or actually you guys introduce yourselves, some OSI people who will be participating in the call today. And then we'll just jump right in. So we're so happy that you're here. And Amy, how about you start introducing yourself?
Great. Welcome, everybody. My name is Amy Loebner. I am our scientific program manager at the Osteosarcoma Institute. So I work with our strategic advisory board and respective committees on moving our scientific initiatives forward.
John?
Thank you. I'm John Khanna. I'm a veterinary oncologist and cancer biologist, and I chair the strategic advisory board of the Osteosarcoma Institute. So welcome to everyone.
Dr. Hellman?
Hello, everyone. I'm Lee Hellman. I know probably half of you on the call, if not more than half. I'm the director of the Osteosarcoma Institute, and I just want to say the purpose of this is to make any of you that are interested in sending in proposals spend as little time as possible figuring out how to fill out and get the grant in, more time thinking about the science and making sure you put in a good proposal. So that's really the focus of this, is to make sure we get as many questions answered so you don't spend all the time figuring out the logistics, but really work on writing a good proposal. So I'll stop and turn it back to Chelsea.
Thank you, team. Appreciate that. It 100% takes a village to pull off our grant cycle process, and all of us play different roles and work well together to make this happen. So thank you for all your commitment. Again, we welcome you to this call. We are so glad that you've joined us and taking some time out of your day. As we get started, this is being recorded and will be uploaded to the OSI's YouTube channel. So if you hear something and forget it or want to reference it later, it will be available for you to view later this month. Also, we will have an opportunity for questions and Q&A at the end, but if a relevant question comes to mind, feel free to add it to the chat. We have a Q&A option on the bottom, or unmute yourself and just interrupt us. So all of you are muted right now. If you want to ask a question, just feel free to chime in as long as it's relevant to kind of the section we're covering. Okay, well, we're just going to get right into it. So as you can see, this grant cycle application instruction document, this is on our website. So if you have not seen that, be sure to go to the Osteosarcoma website, Osteosarcoma Institute website. It's on the researcher resources page. And on our website, it looks something like this. And then you can download the grant cycle instructions right here. So we highly encourage you to read the entirety of this document. It is full of a lot of details. It goes into details from the letter of intent program process, each of our grant programs, and then even into our full proposal submission details, and even parts of our grant terms and things to know through the granting process and agreement. So it really is a very intensive document that should answer most of your questions. And so we'll spend most of the time today going over that to ensure everyone is aware of the details of our process. So we will start. Oh, also, the letter of intent is due on November 15th by 5 p.m. Eastern time, and it must be submitted via Proposal Central. There'll be some more details, and Amy will spend some time going through our Proposal Central portal so that you understand how to use that a little bit better. This beautiful table of contents, if I do say so myself. And then we'll just spend a little bit of time kind of talking about the Osteosarcoma Institute and giving you a little bit of kind of what we do. So our mission is to dramatically increase treatment options and survival rates in osteosarcoma patients through identifying and funding the most promising and breakthrough osteosarcoma clinical trials and science. The OSI was established in 2017 with the goal of improving the outcomes of patients with osteosarcoma. It was envisioned by the What Would Willie Want Foundation, or Quad W, which was created in 2005 to honor the memory of Willie Titchener, who lost his life to osteosarcoma at age 19. Our mission truly does impact every single thing that we do. And so that you'll see a common thread of that throughout even this grant cycle information session, because we just want to make sure that that is the thing that we are focused on. So the OSI is a science-driven organization whose strategy is guided by its active and engaged strategic advisory board, chaired by Dr. Chand Khanna, that has prominent physicians and other researchers from academia and industry. In pursuit of its mission, the OSI employs a multifaceted strategy in which grant funding plays an important role. We'll go into a little bit more about the 4 grant programs we have here in a little bit. Today, the OSI has committed $6.5 million towards a comprehensive portfolio of 14 funded studies. We are very proud of that and continue to see that number grow year over year. We maintain a high level of involvement and accountability with our grantees through regular and rigorous progress reporting. That will also be addressed in a little bit more detail. So I will turn it over to Dr. Lee Hellman to talk a little bit more about our programs.
Thanks, Chelsea. So I'm going to talk briefly about really focus on the LOIs for 2 of the programs, clinical trials and correlative science. And then Chand will have the harder part, talking about a new program in addition to our translational grant, a new grant called High Risk, High Impact Studies. So the clinical trials, I think you can all read the screen. They're really focused on proposed phase 1/2 or phase 2 clinical trials because we know we have not improved outcome of patients with recurrent and measurable disease. The outcomes are horrible. 4-month progression-free survival has been around 12% and continues to be that. So what we're looking for is enumerated here. I really urge all of you to download this document if you haven't already and look through it. But we're looking for studies that are answering important questions. This is the clinical LOIs, have a strong preclinical rationale. We are firmly believe that science will drive our breakthroughs. And so we certainly want to make sure there's some preclinical data that supports the approach, a rigorous trial design, and correlative endpoints to follow for productive failure if in fact the trial does not succeed. A reasonable budget, and we hope you can leverage concurrent financial support, including direct institutional support, etc. So you see here the budget is $800,000. So we're really looking for innovative clinical trials that are pretty close to shovel ready, that you have good preclinical data to support, and a clinical trials infrastructure. We're not really interested in supporting building a clinical trials infrastructure. We're interested in supporting a clinical trial. And I'm going to move directly now to the, I guess I'll get into the structure of that a little bit later. Right, Chelsea? So I just want to give a broad overview here. And, the correlative science is really linked to and should be linked to a clinical trial. It should be really, and we understand it's much harder to get money for correlative studies in clinical trials, even in the COG. We get that. And so we're trying to support correlative studies. They don't have to be studies, clinical trials supported by the OSI, but good clinical trials. And we really want these to generate a support of clinical trials to improve, clinical trials that will generate new biology data associated with the trial that will improve our understanding of metastasis or accelerate the launch of future clinical trials. That there's power analysis demonstrating that the number of samples from patients will actually be available to answer the question. Many of you know it's one of my pet peeves that the secondary objectives of many of our clinical trials have these correlative studies, except the samples generated are never enough to answer any question. And I really feel that's more unethical to do biopsies of patients where you don't get enough data to even answer a question. I feel you're better off not doing any. And obviously, we'd like to see in one of these correlative science proposals data demonstrating that there's technical ability to do the studies that are proposed. So I will stop there and turn it over to Sean.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. So I'll very briefly summarize some of the salient features of first the preclinical and translational, and then give you a perspective on this new grant proposal around high risk, high impact. So the preclinical and translational, not surprisingly, seek to generate hypotheses that'll, next be tested in a human clinical trial. The nuance and the new thing in this current description is, whereas we previously really focused on metastasis alone as the critical point of the preclinical and translational studies, we've realized that there's a broader agenda to find target dependencies in osteosarcoma that may be related to metastasis, to the structurally complex genome, and to this fact that T-cell checkpoint inhibitors as signal agents have failed in osteosarcoma. So that's the broader agenda behind the preclinical and translational studies. And you can read the rest and imagine that there's really nothing otherwise different from what we've done in the past for the preclinical and translational. This new grant cycle includes this high risk, high impact topic. And this emerges from our realization that a tenet in the review of science has historically been a rigorous belief that we reduce risk in scientific review by requiring requiring preliminary data in support of a hypothesis. And we realize that by requiring such preliminary data, at the extreme, you can imagine being required to have done almost everything that you're proposing before you can get funding. And that may impact the level of innovation that's brought to a field. And so to bring greater innovation, we have proposed an approach which does not require the preliminary data as would conventionally be required, but moves the diligence in science to a more rigorous progress review and granting process. So without preliminary data, on a quarterly basis, you would have to demonstrate progress towards success and have a budget that can accept payments on that quarterly milestone process. So that's the idea behind this high risk, high impact project. It's a new experiment for us as we try to bring greater and different science to this field. And we'd love to see people respond. Happy for you to ask questions about this, but that's, I think, the essence of the point. I guess one last important point is that this will be a 1-year proposal funding to the tune of $50,000 to $125,000, whereas the translational and preclinical are 2 years and have a higher budget sort of structure around them. So I think, Chelsea, that's really a summary. There's more detail, and realize that you may not have had a chance to review this. And as Lee said, I think, Chelsea and Amy have put a lot of work into this document with the intent of providing you with the answers to questions that frequently come up. And hopefully, as you review it, you'll have some of the answers that you may be looking for as you consider the LOI and then the full proposals to follow that. So I think that's it from those two pieces, Chelsea, and I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Dr. Hellman. Thank you, Dr. Khanna. And yes, again, we have put the link to our website where you can download this document in the chat. So be sure to click on that link to get the direct download option. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes on our general instructions for all grant programs. So we have 4 grant programs that Dr. Khanna and Hellman just spoke about. And the OSI utilizes a 2-stage grant process. In September of each year, we issue a call for LOI proposals. In late fall, we convene expert review committees to evaluate the LOIs and select finalists who progress to the 2nd stage and are then invited to submit full proposals in the spring, which would be in 2024. The full proposals are evaluated and grants are awarded in the summer. We do not limit our work by geography or primary institutions. Instead, we invite the brightest minds, some of you may be on this call, 2, apply for funding for research studies and revolutionary trials of unexplored aspects of osteosarcoma. These very important dates are highlighted here for your review. Again, this can be found on the document. The letter of intent deadline is November 15th of this year. The letter of intent decision will come January 2024. Full grant submission deadline is April 12th of 2024, and awardees are notified over the summer of 2024. There's additional information here that I would advise you to read. We talk a little bit about other other funding opportunities and things like that. So I would encourage you to read this and view our website as well. So there's a lot of eligibility criteria. I'm going to just hit a couple of the high points. Again, I urge you to read this document to ensure that you, your institution, your project meet all these eligibility criteria. So funds must be granted to nonprofit or charitable institutions or organizations. Grantee organization does not need to be based in the United States. There's some detail there if you are based internationally and how that would work and what documentation you need to have. So read that in detail if you're joining us from another country. And then also applicants must have a track record of publication and funding productivity that demonstrates the project can be accomplished by the investigators. The applicant must propose a new research direction, not a continuation of ongoing funded research. Again, more detail is there for you. Applicants selected for funding will permit OSI to publicize the grant for fundraising purposes, including but not limited to a 5-minute video discussing the research project, photos of the lab, photos of children participating in clinical trials where applicable. Applications that do not follow the specific grant application instructions and/or submission process will not be considered. Applications received after the due date will not be considered. Applications which do not fall under the OSI mission will not be considered. We stated that above. I would urge you to read that again. Additional details for all programs. Indirect costs may not exceed 10% of the total project budget, including indirect costs. To locate the OSI grant programs, you must go to Proposal Central. You will be notified via email if the LOI is approved or rejected. You can go to Proposal Central and then you select the Grant Opportunities tab and enter Osteosarcoma Institute in the search box. That will then pull up all 4 of our programs and you can learn about all of those on Proposal Central and see exactly how to apply. Amy is going to walk us through that here shortly to make sure everyone understands. There are very detailed formatting instructions. I'm not going to read those to you, but please go review those. We talk about font size, margins, all those kinds of details that are very important as you're preparing your submission. And then I also want to point out these contacts. So if you have questions about this process or anything, if you leave this call and have a question tomorrow or next week, please send an email to submissions@osinst.org. And then if you have any issues with Proposal Central, we suggest that you reach out directly to Proposal Central. Their support team is fantastic and they respond very, very quickly. So those are for your reference for later. Amy, anything to add on those 2 pages? Okay.
I think so, yes.
Again, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt and or send them in the chat. We are happy to be interrupted by those things.
Questions are called.
Thank you. Thank you. That wasn't in my script. This next page is a summary of our grant agreement terms. This does not have everything that is included in our contracting agreement and that whole process, but we wanted to kind of hit some points that you need to be aware of before you submit and just ensure that your institution is able to abide by all of these. Again, read this entire page. I'm going to just highlight a few of the things that are very important. So agreement with the following is required to receive an OSI grant. Please ensure that you and your institution can accept all of these terms. This comes up frequently. Any subcontracts must be fully executed before grant funding and must be reviewed and approved by the OSI. There's details about the funding schedule, reporting. Every single grant that we award has interim written reports detailing the progress on each specific aim and expenditures compared to project. Those are required. 3 of our programs are every 6 months, are multi-year projects. As Chand mentioned, the high risk, high impact will be a quarterly situation. So those are just the differences between those 2. In addition, an annual in-person or at OSI's option teleconference project presentation is required. Details about publication and publicity. Subject to reasonable and customary intellectual property considerations, the PI will agree to publicize the results of the project at scientific conferences and use reasonable best efforts to have results published in a scientific journal. The OSI support of the project will be cited. Grantee will permit OSI to publicize the grant, including a synopsis of the project, identifying the PI and institution, and allowing the use solely for this purpose of grantee or its appropriate division's logo. OSI will abide by grantee's guidelines for such use. Be sure to review that and send it to any party at your institution that would need to review that before you submit anything. All right, I'm going to send it back over to Lee to talk about our grant program specific application instructions. So Lee, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. I'm going to go again. The whole purpose of this is to try to answer and make it as clear as possible. Because in the past, we've just had so many calls and it really, it ties up our phones actually. So we just want to be as clear as possible. So I'm really going to focus on the LOI because you don't have to worry about the full proposal until you get there. Again, it's all available already, but the LOI for the clinical trial has a limit of no more than 10 pages. And those 10 pages for the project have to include the following things that are listed 1 through 14, pretty standard stuff. I just want to add that the references cited, because we get this question 5 times a year, the references cited in that 10 pages is included in that 10-page limit. And then in addition to the 10-page limit, which is that form is in the proposal central, so you can't make a mistake, and it has to be you have to include all of these, otherwise we won't review it. And then there's additional information, a title page, etc., institutional contracts. There are attachments, which includes a biosketch. So these attachments are not included within the 10-page limit. The biosketch, again, 5-page limit. That's standard for the, for the NIH, for the NCI. So don't send a biosketch with 8 pages because it won't be part of the review. Then the description, which will be, which is an attachment, which is we just talked about above. So that's really what we're looking for in the LOI. As I said, the next page goes into the more detailed full review. I don't want to go into those details unless somebody has looked at it and has questions about it. We're just trying to make this as simple and as standardized as possible. And then I will move on to the correlative science. Now I'm on page 11. So this is the this has a 5-page limit. And again, that has 8 parts of the project description. They're listed there 1 through 8, pretty straightforward. And the references cited again are included in that 5-page limit. And then in addition to that, you have attachments, additional attachments, including the things listed here. I hope you can all see them. It's a little small, but it's pretty clear. Once again, a biosketch, and that biosketch, once again, has a 5-page limit. So please don't submit a biosketch with 10 pages. And we understand this is a little different. Some of the European countries use something different, but we feel the 5-page limit makes you really focus on what your important contributions are. And that's really, again, if you go on to a full proposal, you get more pages, but it's all listed in the document, which please download ahead of time. Take a look at it so you can plan how you're going to write your project. I think.
And just to clarify, the bullet points down below under in addition to the above, Those are the required sections within Proposal Central, copied verbatim. So they're very easy to follow with each of the sections. You can reference back to Proposal Central, and we're going to show you that.
Thank you, Amy. Yes, I mean, I can't stress that enough. So, I would urge you to look at it. I did it today, and I didn't want to muck up the thing, but it's really pretty clear, and everyone's worked really hard on this. We're really trying to minimize the time you spend contemplating how to put in a proposal and spend all your time writing the best science you can write. I'm done.
Dr. Khanna, do you have anything to add?
No, really nothing to add. I think it's complete, and I think that we remain interested and open to questions. So hopefully we get some really exciting work to review, and then we can all move together towards the goal.
You can just drop down to page 13 in the application instructions for additional reference. These are other resources. One, the grant cycle document here goes directly to our grants page where you can find the application instructions. They're not only on our website, they are also in Proposal Central with every grant program. So they are multiple places for you to be able to find. Additionally, this is the link to sign up to receive our newsletter, and also all communications about our annual grant cycle can be found there. Just make sure you click the box that says Dr. Researcher so that you are put onto that list that receives the grant cycle information. Additionally, our researcher resources page on our website also provides some more details on our grants, as Chelsea mentioned earlier, and some discretionary and off-cycle grant funding. And then lastly, this is a link to our blog with 4 different categories of news stories, from advocacy to patient stories, as well as our research.
Thank you, Amy. And to kind of sum up the sections that Dr. Hellman just went through, I want to just make it very clear that it is required that you include all of the sections below in this specific order for your LOI to be considered. Pages must be numbered. This is very, very important and is echoed again in Proposal Central, but just ensuring that you have viewed that. And as we mentioned, depending on the program, references are included in the page limit, depending on what that limit is. So that is all, again, echoed in Proposal Central, and biosketches have a limit of 5 pages. So we just want to really make sure those few parameters are echoed multiple times in multiple places to ensure that everyone is aware of them. Before we jump into the Proposal Central section, we did get a question, Dr. Khanna and Dr. Hellman. Can current holders of a translational OSI grant apply for the new high-risk, high-impact grant process?
Go ahead,
I'll
Lee.
let Dr. Khanna, just because, I'll let you answer first, John.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think the strategic question that you would have to sort of deliberate around as you consider the high risk, high impact is this idea of budget and review on a quarterly basis, which means that you probably can't put long-term commitments into the budget, realizing that there's short-term review and payment with the high risk, high impact. But I don't think there's a reason you couldn't add this. I mean, the intent is to bring new work that doesn't have the sort of the dogma of robust preliminary data behind it to the OSI. And so if you can argue why an existing project needs this type of support, I think it would be very reasonable. But happy for you to add your thoughts, Lee, and summarize that this is an experiment for us we're interested in pursuing.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is an experiment. If you already have a translational research grant, I hope it's a good one. I hope you don't need, but on the other hand, if in the process of the last year, you had some, really interesting ideas, we're just looking to break the logjam here. So if there's a great idea, we're willing to look at it from anybody. So.
All right, Amy, go ahead and take it away for our Proposal Central walkthrough.
Yes, sure. All right, so if you are on the homepage for Proposal Central, and I can go back there if you'd like to see, all you do is type in, I will go back. I think a lot of you have utilized Proposal Central. Can you see the homepage for Proposal Central? Great.
Yes.
All right. So down here, you will see where you enter your username and or email, your password. If you have never used Proposal Central before, you will need to create an account down below where it says need an account and follow the steps for there. So once you get into Proposal Central, I've already signed in. You will be able to go up here to this grant opportunities, and Chelsea alluded to typing in Osteosarcoma Institute. Well, you don't even have to go that far. You can just type the word osteosarcoma, and we are actually the only organization that comes up with proposals here. So here is where you will see all 4 of our grant programs. Please make sure you are applying to the correct program in which your project is applicable for, because once you get further down the way to the full submission, there are different requirements for what needs to be submitted. So please make sure you are starting at the right program from the beginning. So you will click on Apply Now. And please just let me know, Chelsea, if the screen changes. I may just have to continue to keep sharing due to Zoom requirements. So I'm going to start here with the clinical trials program. And if you hit Apply Now, oh, and it'll make me log in one more time because it's been open for too long for security purposes. Okay. Or not.
Or not.
Okay.
Here we
So
go.
it will bring you to this page here. And first things first, please enter a title for your project. I am just going to call this test for today, because as you can see over here, these are all grayed out. You will not be able to click to different sections until that project title is entered and you hit save. You don't need to complete any of the rest of these from the get-go, but as long as that project title is entered, the rest of these will then open and you will be able to navigate to each of the various sections. So these sections over on the left-hand side, and keep in mind, this is for the LOI, which is what we're focusing on today. Each one of these match the bullet points within each of the grant program in the application instructions we just reviewed. As Chelsea mentioned, the application guidelines can be found on our website. However, they can also be found here under download templates and instructions. Chelsea, are you able to see this? Okay, great.
Yep, you can see it.
Great. So the application instructions, you can download them here. The NIH BioSketch template is downloadable here. And then I do want to actually open this, so I may have to reshare the screen, but this is where the template that Lee talked about, those numbered items must be in your LOI for it to be reviewed. We can open up this. It'll come up to your downloads. Can you see that, Chelsea? Okay, sorry, I'm going to have to stop due to Zoom requirements and reshare. Give me one moment. Okay. This is what is your actual letter of intent template to follow. Of course, once you have completed a section, feel free to keep the titles. You don't need to keep the numbers, but they do need to be in this particular order. Here is where also you will be reminded that for the LOI for a clinical trial, 10 pages is the maximum, inclusive of the references. Or citations, if you will. And so you can actually just download this and use this to write your LOI. All right, let me stop again and get back to Proposal Central. All right, so those are the three templates there. If you have any questions, or the two templates, excuse me, and the instructions, please do let us know. You can also enable other users, such as the project manager, clinical research coordinator. If you happen to have one who's helping you, you can enable access there to this proposal. Applicant PI, these are very straightforward sections of what's included, your degree, your name, so on and so forth. If you do have a profile, as you can see here, I already have one set up, so some of these will populate. I haven't gone to the extent of putting all of my things in here, but just to give you an example, so those should populate if you already have a Proposal Central account.
Actually, on that note, also ensure that the email associated to your Proposal Central account is an email you still have access to.
Yeah.
And that you want to use for communication, because that's
Yeah.
where all communication will be sent. Likewise, we'll just go quickly through these. This is for your institution and institutional contacts. And, you know, feel free, Chelsea is ours for this instance, so that's why she is showing up under my profile here. So attachments, this is where you will actually upload your completed attachments. So the LOI document, once your project description is complete. So your project description is synonymous with your LOI at this stage. And this is also where you will upload your biosketch. It tells you right here what needs to be uploaded. And as Lee alluded to, please do not try and attempt to upload 8 pages of a biosketch. It will not let you upload the document if it's more than 5 pages. So those two are there. And again, should you need
So wait, just stop there. So just to be very clear to everybody,
Yes.
when you get to the attachments, that is, in a sense, that's your application with the other things that you already filled out.
Correct.
So it's really your project and your biosketch are the attachments other than what you fill out in each of the others, but it won't accept it unless it's right.
That's
So
right.
please,
And the
please.
attached files is here, and we just ask that all attachments be in a PDF format for uploading.
Yeah.
Okay. And then once you've done that, there is a signature page confirming that this is all proposal sections are complete. You're providing your electronic signature. You can also print your LOI here. You can also print and save to a PDF. So you have your entire proposal. There is then a next step once you've done that you are validating that you've checked for any missing required information or files. And to please correct, if it were to tell you that you are missing something, to please correct that before trying to submit. And step number 9 is the important that you verify that your LOI is ready to be submitted. Any questions there? And I can show you for the next step, although we don't want to focus on this call for that, but just to show you, once you've submitted, if you were invited to submit a full proposal, that will come here under proposal sections, and I can briefly show you what that will look like by going to, Chelsea, please tell me if you're able to see this next tab. Yes, okay. So this is our staging website, because I was in our live site before where I can only go to the LOI because I've not been asked to submit a full proposal. But if I was, I am going to go up here and hit edit. Now I'm open in the proposal sections. These are now all open for me because I have saved my project title. Many of the fields here will be brought over from your LOI if you are asked to submit a full proposal. But as you can see, there are many more steps. Now, this is a clinical trial, so I'm just staying consistent from the LOI to the full proposal. But there are many, many more steps to complete in Proposal Central for from the standpoint of a full submission. And each of these, you know, you're able to click. I'm not going to spend time doing that, But you can see here, again, proposal attachments, same way we did the others, but you can see for a clinical trial for a full proposal, there are many more attachments here. I will only note, because I'm sure there will be some people on this call who will be potentially moving on to a full proposal, and not to confuse you, but references cited in the full proposal are separate from the page limit there at the full proposal submission, but not for the LOI. They are part of inclusive of your 5 or 10 page LOI for that stage, but they will not be inclusive in the full proposal. But many more things here. Again, your application instructions can be found here in Proposal Central. They can also be found, here under Program Guidelines, and they can be found on our website. So if there's any questions on that, we're happy to answer. It's probably worth communicating that our grant process this year in terms of our application instructions is much more detailed than it has been in previous years. And that really was done to help everyone who's interested in submitting to have all of the information up front on our entire grant process with a full overview of each of the programs. So you know what's coming down the way if you are invited to submit a full proposal. But we welcome any questions, any comments, whether it's now or you think of something down the way. Chelsea and I and Chand and Lee all have access to those submissions emails, so we will return your emails quite promptly, knowing that there are deadlines for the LOI coming here in 2 months.
Thank you, Amy. Well, that wraps up that portion. So now we will step into some question and comments. If anyone would like to unmute themselves, if you'd like to put your camera on, feel free. We just didn't necessarily need to see everyone's face the whole hour. We wanted you guys to see the 4 of us. But if you have any questions, now would be the time to ask them, either in the chat, the Q&A pop-up, or just jumping on and saying, hey, I'd like to ask a question. So we'll give everyone a minute to do so. Feel like I should tell a funny joke or something.
Well, maybe I'll tell a funny joke. I remember the first time when I started middle school, and suddenly we had to do phys ed in a very organized way with the, where we had to put our clothes in a basket, and there was a, where you shower and where you do this. And we sat in a gym for 2 days while they just went through all these things. And I thought, I don't know what they're talking about. But of course, as soon as we went in, it was pretty obvious. So, I mean, I know you hear all this stuff, it sounds complicated, but most of you have used Proposal Central. All we're trying to do is make it as straightforward and as uniform as possible so that everyone puts in the same information so that everyone can be reviewed fairly. And you spend most of your time knowing what's going to be necessary and knowing what we're looking for to hopefully get the best proposals we can. So it's much more complicated when we talk about it than once you go into Proposal Central, is what I'm trying to say.
It looks like we've got a couple questions.
Wow.
Sally, go ahead.
Thank you. So for the LOI budget summary, year by year, are you looking for just overall numbers year by year, or do you want broad budget categories?
I mean, I think we want it to be pretty much just an idea of what the overall budget's going to be. We don't want details yet.
Okay.
It's just to help us if there are, if there are two or 3 proposals that are all ranked very similarly, and one of them's for 500, one of them's for 200. We just want a general idea of what you think your budget will be. If you get a full one, then obviously we want a detailed budget. But this is really just to give the reviewers a sense of what you think the budget would be for the full proposal.
Okay, and then I've got a couple of other quick questions for the summary of other anticipated support. Are you talking about more of a traditional NIH other support, or other support directed towards the project?
I think it's directed towards the project, like institutional support.
Okay.
You know, again, if you have some institutional support, or for example, for a clinical trial, if you have support from a drug company supplying the drug, those are the kinds of things we're looking for.
Or
So
other philanthropic support from other foundations as
But
well.
we're not looking for
All of
other NIH grants you have, for example. We're looking for support for the project you're proposing.
Okay, terrific. And then the last question is how much leeway? So sometimes, you know, from LOI stage to proposal stage, there may be some change in the trial sites, for instance, that you want to.
Absolutely. Yep, you can change that. And that's why you can even change the title a little bit. So you can change, you can use the same things from your headings, but you could change them if you want, if they really evolved a little bit. Obviously, they should be mainly, you shouldn't come with a new proposal, but obviously you can edit those in some ways for sure.
Terrific, thank you.
I saw another question, unless it was answered. Maybe you don't have it anymore.
Thanks for the question, by the way, Sally.
I will
Appreciate it.
take this opportunity. It is listed in our grant cycle document, but to also let everyone know that we are very proud of our review process. And after the LOI stage and the full proposal stage, each applicant receives detailed feedback from our reviewers as far as what things should be adjusted, changed, focused, whatever that may be. And so even in the LOI stage, we provide feedback to every single applicant so that they can improve their application for future grant submissions.
And even maybe I'll just add, because nobody's asking a question, we have a little bit more time, right? What do we have? 5
Couple minutes, yep.
If you are funded for any of these 4 categories, I think just so you understand the purpose of the progress reports, and either the every what is it, 2 month, John, with the high risk,
Quarterly.
or the every 6 months. It's the whole idea is this: we hope to be interactive in these progress reports, to make sure things are moving and try to solve problems with you, to be helpful. It's not to be, you know, point fingers, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. It's really to be an iterative process where we can interact together to honestly discuss what's working, what isn't working, and try to solve problems with you. I mean, obviously, if you have a 2-year proposal, it's hard not to get funded for that 2 years because, you know, but we're trying to help get the most out of it as early as possible and along the way for those 2 years. So it's really not to be it's supposed to be supportive, but critical in a supportive way to make sure whatever isn't working, can anyone help with making it work better or whatever. It's really supposed to work in a very supportive, iterative way as the research moves forward.
Well,
And
unless there are
again,
any
we try to do the same thing, even at the LOI. We do try to give feedback. So, you know, if there are some issues or concerns with the submission, we do try to give ideas or give you a sense of what was not considered doable or of high impact or whatever it was in a constructive way. So you might want to think about it and restructure an LOI at the next round if you so desire.
And Sally, we did some digging on the budget detail, just to be very clear. The budget details are in section 1 for the LOI, and there's just a little bit of information that's requested there. But in our project description, it specifically says budget summary by project year. And again, indirect costs may not exceed 10%. So that's just for the LOI phase. And then again, the full proposal would be a lot more detailed.
We're just trying to get a sense of how much you think it's going to cost. That's all. The LOI.
So since there are no other questions, we must have done a spectacular job. But I do want to wrap up, and one more time, just remind everyone, it is required to include all the sections in the provided template in the specific order for your LOI to be considered. Please read the entire grant guidance document that I put in the chat, is on our website and is on Proposal Central. This video will be uploaded to the OSI's YouTube channel, and a link will be provided on the researcher resources page on our website as well. And the LOI deadline, the letter of intent deadline, is November 15th at 5 p.m. Eastern on Proposal Central. Submissions must be submitted by 5 p.m. Eastern on November 15th. I think that covers the very, very detailed points of what we wanted to get across to everyone today. We so appreciate you taking the time out of your day. We know that all of you are very, very busy and have many, many meetings. And so I'll give you at least 5 minutes back of your day so that you can take a moment, maybe grab a snack or something. But we greatly appreciate you taking the time to join us for this. If you have questions that do come up, please send them to submissions@osiinst.org. Again, that email is on our website and the grant guidance document for your reference. Amy, Sean, Lee, anything else to add?
Just goodbye, and we're looking forward to some good proposals from all of you.
Yes, very, very much. Thank you guys very much. Everyone have a wonderful day, and we will call it a day. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.